Hey, everybody, welcome into our first official show of Sooner Softball Live. My name is Jason Ray. I think most of you typically find me at 11:30 each Wednesday talking about Oklahoma football, but this time of the year, obviously, we'll continue to talk about Oklahoma football, but I think what we've tried to do here is branch out just a little bit, and obviously there is so much excitement about Oklahoma softball over the last few years, and the sport is growing exponentially, not necessarily just in the state of Oklahoma, but also nationally. The popularity of the Women's College World Series and just the attention of the game in itself has been much more, I think, much more exciting. I think much more successful, and there's a whole lot more eyeballs watching this as they than maybe has happened in the past. So, what we're going to try to do here is kind of go once a week and talk about primarily, of course, Oklahoma Sooner softball, but then delve into some things nationally. With some of the big series. So our plan is to go live once a week. I think kind of depending on schedules and things like that, how that will happen. We will, a lot of times that will happen on Fridays. Possibly we'll do something on Sundays, just kind of from a series post game perspective. And then certainly we'll continue that as we go through, regionals, super regionals, and the Women's College World Series there in June. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Ray. Like I said, typically go live talking about Oklahoma football during the week. Still, we'll continue that coverage, but we're supplementing that coverage to talk a little bit about Oklahoma softball. And really, what better of a time, what better of a weekend to really kick this off and start this off with Oklahoma and Texas getting ready to I almost said kick off. So used to doing football here. Getting ready to square off this evening in Oklahoma City for game one, and then back in Norman for game two and game three on Saturday and Sunday. So for those of you that are new, please hit that like and subscribe button so you guys know when we go live, when we make any changes, and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the events of yesterday that has Sooner Nation riled up, that has alumni a little bit upset, that has the current players, I think, seething just a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the matchup specifically this weekend between Oklahoma and Texas, and some of the areas, maybe some pitching matchups and things like that. And then as we progress through the conversation, maybe we'll talk a little bit more Big 12, and then nationally some of the series that I'll be watching, that I'll be looking at, and I'll be really just paying attention to as we look into as we start getting deeper and deeper into conference play for both Oklahoma and Texas and the Big 12 at large. So, but if you don't, here's my little shameless plug here. Come follow me at Jason Ray 1, like we do all year, talk a lot of football, but specifically right now with it being softball season, there's a lot of softball discussion, and a lot of things that we'll talk about here is very centered around softball, and we'll take your comments and questions as we go forward, and then later in the broadcast we'll talk about, give me some of your predictions on how you believe this series between Oklahoma and Texas will shape up. Is this going to end up being a sweep for Oklahoma? Is it going to be one of these series where maybe Texas has the opportunity to take a game, or are these going to be close games? Do we see any potential run rule? So just be thinking about some of your predictions and things like that. And as we go forward here, we'll like I said, we'll start talking about the matchup a little bit, and then maybe some of the pitching matchups that we might see for the three games. As I mentioned, remember tonight's game obviously is in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma's home away from home over the last real decade, obviously, since 2000, if you want to put it that way, just in where Oklahoma has been very well represented in that Women's College World Series. So really, really cool for the fans and for so many different people to get an opportunity. Should be more than 9,000, potentially 10,000 fans there at the stadium tonight. So a lot of Sooner fans obviously will be there in attendance. So So let's go in. Let's talk about this a little bit more. So before we start talking about the matchup, for those of you that don't know, if you've been on Twitter, if you are anywhere around Twitter, I think you probably, or even Facebook, any kind of social media, you probably have gotten wind of the little bit extra motivation that Oklahoma has coming into this game. But if you have not heard, or maybe you've been under a rock for the last couple of days, there was a tweet that came out where there was an interview with some of the Texas players, and most specifically an interview with Texas head coach Mike White. And in that interview, Mike White really took an opportunity to question the Oklahoma softball program, to question the integrity of head coach Patty Gasso, and really just kind of talked about the fact that Oklahoma, not really sure how Oklahoma has continued to get better and better over the last few years. Really questioned the manner in which Oklahoma has recruited from the high school level, really questioned the way that Oklahoma has approached the transfer portal, and really kind of accused Oklahoma of cheating. So you've seen a lot of former players, and indeed you've even seen players that are coaching at other schools at this point, which is very which really has struck a nerve. Sidney Romero was one that tweeted out last night, really in support of Patty Gasso, in support of the current program, of just exactly how this program has come about, what this program is all about. And the one thing I mentioned by those comments was that Mike White really even questioned not necessarily definitely the integrity, but also talked a lot about Oklahoma just in terms of them being bullies. And so, like I said, you've seen a lot of people come to the aid of this Oklahoma softball program, and I think you'll continue to do that. And so, um, it's an interesting strategy, obviously by Mike White, and I don't know, I don't really necessarily know what the motivating factor was behind those comments. If it was more, kind of related to what happened in the championship series last year, or just the continued success that this Oklahoma program has had over the last few years. Obviously, understanding that Mike White hasn't been with Texas for a long period of time, but very interesting. This is a team that has in Oklahoma this year that has, when they've really struggled against teams that they are far superior to. Obviously, Baylor comes to mind. There was a struggle against Liberty, and then for a little bit there was a little bit of a struggle against Iowa State last weekend until the ladies turned it on big time there. So, but you've seen when this team has been challenged by highly ranked teams, or they felt like there's a big significant challenge to be had, that's when they've been at their best. You can go back just a few weeks ago to Auburn and how they completely dominated game one, and then ended up dominating game two, and not in a run rule fashion, but won the game fairly handily. And then obviously we remember going back to UCLA, and then Kentucky, a couple of two really, really dominant games by Oklahoma. So you see this team, maybe play to the level of the competition at certain times, not a majority of the time, just at certain times against teams that they feel they're far superior to. But I think at the same time, once they're challenged, once they get in a situation where they believe this is where we need to be at their best, they have been at their best this year, without a doubt. So before we get into it a little bit more, let's go to some of the comments and see what questions or any comments that might have. Fang, thanks for joining. Fang's a guy that really joins us on our softball space that we have each and every Tuesday night, 5:30 p.m. If you're on Twitter, come follow us. We will Obviously, we'll tweet about that and let you know when it's happening. But typically at 5:30 p.m. Every Tuesday night Central Time. That's more focused on the national side of it, whereas this will be a little bit more focused on Oklahoma. But certainly, yeah, we talk a lot about Oklahoma, and then just nationally the game as well. Without a doubt. Big Okie, thanks for being here. They need to clean up all the base running snafus, and I think Big Okie, that's Patty is very very aggressive by nature. I think she is very very much in the perspective of really making the other team make a great play, making the other team, I think, make a perfect throw to throw, these ladies out on the base paths. And so I think the one thing that I've noticed a couple of times, and um, I think it's really important to talk through, is I think they've had situations where they've been thrown out at the play. They have a runner at third, and the ball is hit to the pitcher, and then they're running on contact. That's the only thing that I've seen that maybe they could be maybe a little bit less aggressive in terms of that. But anytime, specifically if you got Jada at third, anytime you have, some of our girls that really have a lot of speed, I think you want to push that. But I think anywhere else other than the pitcher would give Oklahoma just a really good opportunity to score on any kind of ground ball hit on the infield with less than two outs. Jessica's going to be loud even more now with Mike White's absolutely. And Jessica's one of our resident OU softball experts. For you guys that don't know, she is Johnny on the spot, so to speak, with any kind of stats or anything like that. So make sure that you pay attention to her comments. If you don't follow her, please do on Twitter. She's a great follow, and she also, like I said, she knows a lot of stats. I know there were some discussions earlier this year about the consecutive on base streak by Jada Coleman, and she was all over that. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be incredibly loud, and this is a situation where they've if there was a sleeping giant, I think they have awakened that sleeping giant without a doubt. I heard the wind was blowing so hard that zebras at the zoo. So. One of those things that's interesting, Big Okie. I don't know which in relation to the field, how if it'll be blowing, if it's a crosswind or if it's going to be blowing out or blowing in today. So someone that's in the Oklahoma City area can probably help me with that. I live in Tulsa, and the wind is just astronomically bad right now. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a factor in tonight's game without a doubt. I don't know how it's going to be a factor, if it's going to be, from if it's blowing in, if it's blowing left to right, or if it's blowing out, or what that looks like. So someone that knows that a little bit more, feel free to make a comment, and we'll discuss that without a doubt. Whoops, sorry about that. Let's see. Yep, show those true colors against Kentucky. And for those of you that don't follow that, so basically Kentucky was up 7-4, I believe. I don't remember what inning specifically that was, maybe the fourth or fifth. And Mike White on several occasions delayed that, and then essentially what it came down to is they had to call the game at the top of that inning because of time, in terms of, because that was a Sunday game for traveling back and forth. So they basically had to end that game as a tie, and he deliberately delayed that over and over again that inning to force that tie. So yeah, I think what he's done over the last couple of years has really alienated himself with the state of Oklahoma, not just Oklahoma, but with the state of Oklahoma. I think it started last year with kind of his temper tantrum that he threw in the Big 12 tournament game against Oklahoma State. And then I think just his handling of Haley Dulcini last year on the mound in the regionals, and really just like overworking her to the point where she was just a shell of herself in the really in the entire Women's College World Series, but specifically against Oklahoma in a couple of those games where she pitched, and then obviously this year. So I think he's done a good job if that's his goal of just kind of alienating the fan base here. But no, absolutely. I think he again showed his true colors and just the type of head coach that he really is, without question. Things so we can trash talk all other teams here without repercussions. Absolutely, absolutely. Oklahoma State, Texas, UCLA are probably the three teams in my mind, thing that are the biggest, I would say, rivals of Oklahoma. But yeah, feel free to talk trash about any teams, especially as we get into the national scene and start talking about that. A little bit, with no question. Let's see here. Let's see if we got any. Jessica Mike White is not new to upsetting fan bases the way he left and then raided Oregon, flipping. Yep, absolutely. I talked a little bit about that, but I didn't mention the. I did not mention the kind of the rating of Oregon, which that is very, very true. So just a public service announcement here. My electricity is flashing because of the wind, and so I hope I don't lose connection at any time. But if that happens, that's why that's how you know what happened. So rumor has it Fing has a framed autograph of my very, very nice. So okay, so let's get into the matchup a little bit today. Between Texas and Oklahoma, kind of between the lines, so to speak. So Texas is a team, in my opinion, watching them a few times this year, they're, believe it or not, they're a little bit of a better team, I believe, than they were last year when they're at their best. But they've been very inconsistent at times. The losses to Texas State, losses to South Florida, but they've got wins, obviously, against Alabama. They've got wins against Virginia Tech, and so they are very capable. They're a very capable team. They're in the top 20 in a lot of offensive categories. I think the one difference this year, they're a little bit better. They're a little bit better in the circle. I think from a totality perspective. Last year, they really relied on Haley Dulcini to a certain degree. Estelle Check ended up pitching in Game 2 of the championship series against Oklahoma, was pretty effective early on. Then Oklahoma kind of figured her out a little bit, and Sophia Simpson again was a little bit more of a kind of a reliever. Had some spot starts just like she's had this year, but I think this team's a little bit better in the circle, and they're hitting a little bit better than I expected they might. 351 average overall as a team, not a big home run hitting team. 35 on the year, not terrible, but not a huge home run hitting team. They're fast, they steal some bases, so a little bit better of a team that you maybe anticipated with some of the losses that they had with Janae Jefferson and Mary Iacopo, and Dulcini, as we mentioned, not being part of this team this year. But 35-1 on the season. So a team that is certainly capable. I think they're definitely their top 10 ranking is definitely warranted. I think at this point for Texas, just based on clear number 3 team right now in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, but does have the ability to challenge Oklahoma from a speed perspective, ability to challenge Oklahoma, just by the way they pitch and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this series goes. I think throughout the series, and so as we look to the pitching matchups in this game tonight and throughout the series, Oklahoma really has 3 bona fide aces when you talk about Alex Storako, Nicole May, and Jordy Ball. So 3 of those 3, two of which have a sub 1 ERA on the year. So if you take anything from what happened last week in Oklahoma's initial Big 12 series, Alex Storako started game one on Friday. And then we had Nicole May start game two, and then Jordy Ball start game three. It will be interesting to see what Patty does tonight. I would lean towards Storako getting the nod tonight, and I think the reason why I think Patty would love to see exactly how she performs in this type of environment. Knowing that this is where Oklahoma will be in the Women's College World Series, knowing that Alex is going to be a pivotal, going to hold a pivotal role in this Oklahoma team in the circle this year. And so I think the biggest part for Alex is where she struggled from time to time, and she's left the ball out over the middle of the plate a couple of times. When she Florida State was the big one that you kind of noticed, but you're nitpicking a girl when you look at that 11-0, a 0.80 ERA, 73 strikeouts, and 52 and 2/3 innings. So I would lean towards Storako getting the call tonight, and really kind of doing and looking at it the same way, with Storako going tonight, and then you've got probably I would lean May and Ball, but you can go in any direction. I think you know. When you look at Storako, she struggled a little bit in the battle series. I think admittedly so. Got a little bit down on herself, but has really worked hard on her location. She's got great stuff, a very very electric rise ball, and she's got a really good change that works to her benefit as well. And so she's done a really good job just kind of settling in and kind of getting into her new role here at Oklahoma. Nicole May is a person, even myself thought there could be a chance that Nicole could potentially transfer coming in, but she has been outstanding. I think the level of confidence that she has brought in the circle this year is a lot more evident and a lot bigger than you've seen in the past from her. I think she has the confidence of knowing how good of a pitcher she is. Even more strikeouts than Storako on the year with 82, and just knowing that Storako has been through her career a big time strikeout pitcher, and she's done phenomenal with that this year. But Nicole May is holding her own and just doing such a wonderful job. And so you love to see a kid like that's come back from, she didn't have the best of outings against UCLA obviously last year, and I think that's a lot of what some people have in the back of their mind. But she's done just a phenomenal job kind of bouncing back and being exactly what Oklahoma needs her to be. It could be she's an ace. She could be, like I said, I consider all three of these ladies kind of co aces. So then you talk about Jordy Ball, 8-1, 1.66 ERA, 74 strikeouts, and 59 innings. And the thing about Jordy is that you have to understand, and I think a lot of people have been concerned early on in the year because she wasn't quite as dominant as she was last year for a majority of the season. But you have to understand that's what happens when you don't get a normal off season to do. Still kind of recovering from, obviously, from where she was a year ago, and not really necessarily that she wasn't at that level, but the hitters catch up from time to time. But I think the one thing that's very, very exciting for me, following Jordy and watching her, is how good she's been since that Florida State series, when she came in and shut the door on Florida State and was really just incredibly dominant in the couple of innings that she pitched there and shutting that down. And then she's been outstanding since then. I don't believe she's given up an earned run since then, and probably in 3 or 4 outings, and so she's getting into where I think a lot of people would expected her to be early on in the year, and I think it's just very exciting just to see exactly how well she's pitching. So that's what I would probably venture a guess, but don't be surprised if it's any of the three start tonight in any particular order. There's no certainly no preference, and I'm just basing that off of how Oklahoma started that last week. Don't know if Patty will switch that up, but just my gut tells me Rocco will probably get the ball to start the series tonight. And then when you look at the Texas side, Texas has three three ladies that have primarily started a lot this year. So Mac Morgan, the transfer from Arizona State, has come in and pitched well. Not a strikeout pitcher, as you can see, only 47 strikeouts and 79 innings pitched. So she leads the team in innings pitched. She's the girl. She's the lady that comes and typically pitches in some of their biggest matchups that they've had this year. She started both matchups against Alabama. I would expect her to get the nod tonight against Oklahoma in game one. And then you've got freshman Satali Gutierrez, 1.7 ERA, 53 strikeouts, and 64 innings pitched. She's done really well as well. Again, would expect her. And I think Texas probably feels the same way that Oklahoma does, that they have three aces that they could go to really at any point. And then lastly, as we mentioned, Estelle Check a little bit more as well, getting a little bit more start. She was really primarily in a for the most part, she was in a reliever role last year, but has started a little bit more. And then I don't have the stats here, but Sophia Simpson is another one that she's really come off the bench, really kind of in a relief role more so this year than she has. She's got 6 starts on the year. Wouldn't be surprised if she started, but I think they like her in that reserve role as well. So Texas has pitched a lot better this year than they have last year for sure, and I think they're going to rely on that to be able to go. And I think a lot of Oklahoma fans won't necessarily love to hear this, but this is a team that I think is kind of built for the postseason. I think this team has the ability, if they're not the greatest defensive team in the country, a .965 fielding percentage. They struggled with that last year as well. So I think that's the situation where that could come back to bite them, but they've got speed. They can play the short game. They can pitch. They do have a couple of decent home run hitters, and so they hit for average. So I think this team is a team that could be successful in the postseason, but they have to maintain that level of consistency. So we'll go back to some of the questions and comments, and then we'll kind of get into the we talked a little defense and pitching, and then we'll get to the hitting side of things. Let's see. Fang, I don't think they have a Dulcini type pitcher that can get on fire and hold Oklahoma. Yeah, I think that's you've seen that a little bit, Fang, in a couple of the games that Mac Morgan has pitched. Really solid, but I don't think, to your point, I don't think that they have anyone that can hold Oklahoma down for consistent. I think that's very few and far between. That we saw, interestingly enough, against Northwestern, we saw Lauren Boyd really hold Oklahoma's bats down. Only the solo home run from Grace Lyons in 6 innings in that game at Hall of Fame Stadium a couple of weeks ago, which was interesting. That's something you don't see a whole lot. And Oklahoma was really off balance, but as my buddy Andrew would say, Oklahoma has struggled a little bit from time to time with screwball pitchers. But I think you're spot on. I don't think this is a team, especially against a big-time team this weekend, that has the ability to hold Oklahoma down for 4, 5, 6 innings at a time. Absolutely right. Jess hitting us with the facts as well. Again, last time Texas won the series was 2009. The last time that OU didn't outright win was 2011. So I will maintain this. I don't think there's a softball team on the planet, and this is 31 games into the season. Could be wrong once it gets regional time, or heck, I could be wrong in this series or against Oklahoma State or wherever it may be. I just don't think there's a team on the planet that can beat this team 2 out of 3 games in a 3-game series. Again, this team obviously has shown that they can get beat in a single game, but when they get beat, like teams have all hell to pay after that. I mean, you've seen how Oklahoma has come out since that loss to Baylor. You saw the way that they reacted after they lost to UCLA last year in the Women's College World Series. So this is a team that doesn't react well to losing for the other team. And so I just don't think until I see it happen, I don't think that any team is positioned to beat this team 2 out of 3 games. I think Mayor Ball might start tonight because Alex allows more fly outs at me randomly. Very, very good point. I wasn't really necessarily considering the win factor, but you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot more fly balls with Storako, so that's very, very possible. I agree with you. One of the two between May or Ball might get that start without a doubt. And Jessica, confirming. Definitely, I would see that happening unless it's a situation where the wind's blowing in. If the wind's blowing in, then maybe it could be to Oklahoma's advantage, getting a lot of fly balls. But if the wind is blowing out, or if it's any sort of a crosswind, then I definitely agree with that, without a doubt. Sidney, yep, absolutely, makes perfect sense. With that. No doubt. So let's talk a little bit about things on the offensive side of the ball, and so it really just starts with Jada. I know there's going to be a lot of discussion. When we get to the end of the year, really about the MVP or the best individual player in the country. And I know that I'm a little bit. I know there's some people that are gonna throw out Kiki Malloy from Tennessee, and there's some others that are up there. But Jada to me is without a doubt the best player in the country. When you talk about everything that she gives to the team, as we talked a little bit about earlier, she's got on base every single game this year, and then I believe it goes back to the Oklahoma State game last year. So 31 straight this year, hitting 500. And one thing that I think she's done a really good job of is getting her power numbers are much better than they were than they've ever been in her career. But certainly last year, with a 949 slugging percentage, tied with Alyssa Brito for 8 home runs on the year. So it all starts with Jada. Table setter, does a really good job in that leadoff. Again, one of the best players in the country without a doubt. And then we just talked about Alyssa Brito just a little bit. 8 home runs, 32 RBIs, hitting over 400 on the season. Again, she has been probably the most consistent outside of just from a power number perspective outside of Jada. But I think you see good things from Brito. But this team collectively is hitting 391 as a team, second in the nation in home runs, leads the nation in scoring, leads the nation in slugging percentage. So this is a team that that we knew coming into this season would be a little bit more balanced from a power perspective, knowing that you don't have the best softball player on the planet and Jocelyn Allo, and you've got Haley Lee, you've got Tiara Jennings, you've got Grace Lyons, you've got Haley Lee. You've got a lot of these you've got a healthy Kinsey Hansen this year. I think you've got a lot of other components that are stronger from 1 through 9 than perhaps you did last year. But I think that's so you can't really single one person out, because this is a team that has so much strength up and down the lineup that it's hard to pitch around um, any certain girls. And I think the one thing that will be interesting to see is, particularly consistently as we go through Big 12 season, where does Patty feel the most comfortable with playing first base consistently? Sid unfortunately has had a little bit of a struggle to this season. Is just really, whether you call it a sophomore slump or just kind of, she's not really been the player that I think, from a production perspective, that some of us anticipated coming in. You've got Jocelyn Erickson that went through a little bit of a freshman slump, but starting to hit the ball really, really well. So I think it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be one of those things that Patty continues to go with maybe the hot hand in that situation, but I think, and then you've got Sophia Nugent as well, to see how she kind of gets in and out of the lineup will be interesting as well. Particularly tonight, but as you go through the rest of the season, that's really the only position that's really kind of that you wonder each night who's going to get the start. But Patty's done a really, really good job at certainly just making sure that everyone's happy, getting everyone enough at bats and opportunities as well. And so when you flip the other side, when you go to Texas, as I mentioned, they're hitting 351 as a team. That's top 10 in the country overall. I believe top 5, if I'm not mistaken. And so they've got 5 players that's hit over 350: Leanne Good, Mia Scott, Viviana Martinez, Ashton Maloney, and Bella Dayton. I think a lot of people will certainly remember Mia Scott and Bella Dayton last year. Specifically, Bella Dayton was a young lady that really caught fire in the Women's College World Series, and she was she was good against Oklahoma in those couple of games in the championship series, and very consistent. But Mia Scott is extremely quick. Got to keep her off the base paths for Oklahoma as well. And then you go from a power perspective, Courtney Day and Reese Atwood lead Texas in home runs with 7 each. I mentioned that they're not a huge home run hitting team, 35 home runs on the year compared to 57 for Oklahoma. So not a huge home run hitting team. They're more of a kind of a base hitting type of team. And slugging percentage is only 534. I say only. It's not. That's not like a terrible slugging percentage, but so you can see they rely on their speed. They rely on their ability to pass the bat and score in that manner. So really, really interesting matchup. And so now let's go back before we kind of get to we'll wrap the Oklahoma portion of it up and get more to and get more kind of to the national scene. But before we do, as we go through some more of these comments, I'm interested in your predictions. Is this going to be a sweep for Oklahoma? Are we going to see any close games? What are the chances that you see Texas maybe getting a game, able to steal a game? Maybe off some of the emotion that's out there. What do you think is going to happen in the series from a predictions perspective? Let's see. And so, at the start of March, Malloy was on fire, but she kind of struggled in SEC conference play. Yeah, and that's what you would typically expect, and that's not necessarily happening with Jada at this point. Now I know it's only excuse me. I know it's only 3 games in, obviously, for Oklahoma in the conference season, and we'll get there as it goes. But yeah, no, I've noticed that as well. She struggled a little bit. Donahue struggled a little bit as well for Tennessee as they've gotten into conference play as well. Yeah, I think absolutely. I think when you take into into account everything that she does. Um, the best center fielder in the game, without defensive center fielder in the game, without question. And then what she's been able to bring to the plate, consistency with the average and the power numbers, I think is just like it's just astronomical at this point. And so she is, without a doubt, that person. Jay wants to play shortstop before her career is over, and I'd like to see Patty give her a shot out of curiosity. I mean, I think if we were going to see that just in a spot, just to see how she did, I think we probably would have seen that in the battle series or maybe early on in the non-conference. But I don't think that she would be bad at. I think she would excel at any position that you put her out there. But it's hard to, especially, I mean, unless this is you've got a significant blowout situation. I don't know if she has enough persuasive skills within her to talk Patty into that. But we'll see. That would be interesting to see, and I think she would excel if she did that. If Erickson's slump is over, I think first base is hers to lose. I think you're right. I think I think you're going to, continue to see Sanders get some at bats without a doubt. But I think right now it's probably hers. And we'll see if a little bit of the slump is over. And I think really what was happening is a lot of these pitchers were just were hammering her inside, and she wasn't able to lay off of it, and so she was rolling over a lot. And so I think she's she's gotten a little bit more discipline there, and really looking and making them pitch, making them throw the pitch that she wants to hit. So I think absolutely, and I think honestly to this point that you've made as well, I think matchups obviously is going to be a big part of it. If there's a lefty in there, like very specifically, when you think about Estelle Check, like if she's in there, then maybe Sid gets the start in that situation, without a doubt. Yeah, I think it's and I don't know what it is, guys. It's something that I know that a few of us have a few of us that really talk about Oklahoma day in and day out. I know it's some things that we've discussed, and what exactly the problem is. I think there's a little bit of a mental aspect to it. I think there's she probably feels an enormous amount of pressure coming in. I don't know if she felt the pressure, felt like that she needed to be Jocelyn Allo. She needed to be the replacement. Like if she put that pressure on herself, or we always see in sports, and softball is no different, that there's a sophomore slump. It's a thing, like it happens. Just because you had success one year does not necessarily mean that's going to translate year in and year out. But no, I think that's something to keep an eye on. And she goes through situations where she has really good at bats, and then situations where she's kind of getting in her head, and she's just really, really just hoping to get a hit and hoping to get a good at bat. Excuse me, and hoping to get a good swing. And so I think we'll see that as we move forward. She'll be needed. I think there'll be an at bat, in crunch time, whether it's a pinch hit or whether she's starting against a lefty, that will prove really. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Will prove beneficial at some point in the season. So, yeah, agree. Just a mental block, and hopefully she can get over that at some point. Good to see Grace back in form. Yeah, it's like, it was interesting. You always anticipate someone that's away, and I believe 7 or 8 games was how long she was out of the lineup. Maybe a little bit more, but I think that just seems to ring a bell. And sorry, I'm getting a little choked up here. And then she came back, and it's like nothing nothing happened. She was she hit the ball. I believe when her very first at bat, I believe was a pinch hit, or pinch hit situation. Swung at the first pitch, really had a good swing, and then she's been crushing the ball. And of course, her defense is spot on, and absolutely incredible. And so yeah, no, I think it's good to have that. Good to have that additional power bat in the lineup. There, I completely agree. There. Jessica, I think Burrito continues her good year, has a spectacular weekend. Plus, from all accounts, there's bad blood with Mike White after Oregon and her transfer portal recruitment to OU or Texas. Yep, absolutely. I think couldn't agree more. I think she is primed to have a good weekend, without a doubt. And so yeah, so we only got 15 minutes here, and so just a couple of series that I think are interesting to me, and I think there's certainly more, but a couple of as I go through here nationally, Arkansas, Mississippi State. Obviously, there's some ties with Samantha Rickett at Mississippi State. Arkansas is a team that's really been up and down this year. Really struggled kind of on the tail end of non-conference season. Got run ruled in a midweek game against Wichita State. Lost at home to Central Arkansas, which is not necessarily a bad loss, without a doubt. Both of those teams are really solid at the mid-major level, but I think you've got both teams that I think Arkansas obviously is better than. But then they've come into conference play 1-2 out of 3 against 1-2 out of 3 against Florida and Alabama, both. And so I think you like if you're an Arkansas fan, you like where you're headed. I think the one concern I would have, just slight, not a big concern. We talked about this on our space on Tuesday, that the utilization of Shanice Dels. She's clearly their ace. They don't have one. I don't feel that's close to her level. So I think it's going to be interesting as we continue to look at some of these teams, not only Big 12 but across the country, that are good. These teams that really rely on one individual, one strong pitcher. We've talked about in the spaces. We've talked about Shanice Dels. We've talked about obviously Monica Fouts with Alabama and the utilization that she's had. Emma Limley at Virginia Tech. Those are a few that kind of come to mind. Megan Faramo at UCLA a little bit more as well. And so I think that's really going to be something to keep an eye on. And the Mississippi State's really been up and down. Georgia really dominated them last weekend. So we'll see. We'll kind of see what that continues to look like there. Would expect Arkansas to win at least 2 out of 3 in that series. And this one's a little bit off the radar nationally a little bit, but Indiana, and Jess can chime in here. She's still here. She mentioned this. I can't remember exactly how many they've won in a row. Somewhere around 17 or 18 in games in a row for Indiana. They actually even got into the top 25 in one of the polls this week. And I think I talk about this because I believe that the Big Ten is really wide open, and I think it's probably, not probably, it's very much considered the weakest Power 5 conference in college softball this year. No, Michigan is a shell of really what they've been in the past. Northwestern is a very interesting team. They played one of the toughest schedules in the country. They've come on as of late. They played really well in that Hall of Fame Classic. Winning every game except for the game against Oklahoma, beating Auburn twice, and so they swept, I believe it was Minnesota this past weekend. So Northwestern continues to be a team that's really good, so Indiana looks like a team that could possibly get in there and compete against them. Ohio State's a decent Big Ten team, top half Big Ten. Not anyone that's going to do any damage in the postseason, but a decent team without a doubt. And so, and then we talked a little bit about them previously, but Florida, really has I think on paper is the easiest series that they have left in SEC play. And Florida is a team that's been very, very up and down, very maligned because of the weak schedule that they had early on in the year, and they really kind of ran roughshod over that. But they've struggled against ranked opponents. I think they started off once they went to the, I believe this was in Clearwater, where they got run ruled by Oregon. They got run ruled by UCLA. They lost to Cal State Fullerton, and then they've just been very inconsistent. So I think this is very, very pivotal series for them to go. They need to win all three of these. I think they need to, if they want to get back to the Women's College World Series, if they want to put themselves in position to hosting regionals, I think it's going to be a stretch for them to get up to where they need to be to host a super. But if they want to be able to host regionals, they need to take advantage of this this series, and they've got to win three from South Carolina, who is one of the weakest teams in the SEC. And Tennessee and Texas A&M, and again, another interesting series. Tennessee is a team that us, on our kind of our little committee that we have, that provides the rankings each week, that Tennessee's a team that we talk a whole lot about in terms of, that was a team a couple of weeks ago that we debated whether that was Tennessee was potentially the number 2 team in the country. And last weekend they did win 2 out of 3 against Alabama, but that last game could have gone either way. And so and Texas A&M is really up and down. They can hit. They absolutely can hit. They scored a lot of runs against Kentucky in a couple of games last weekend. So this will be an interesting matchup against Tennessee with one of the best ERAs in the country. I believe they are second in the country. 0.94 ERA, just behind Clemson, although that might change after this weekend. But that's an interesting matchup again to keep your eye on. Then let's stay in the SEC here. Alabama and Missouri. Alabama's a team, again, they're a team they're easy to dislike, I think, just kind of being completely transparent and honest. I think, with the way Patrick Murphy handles Montana Fouts and just what appears to be a little bit of I don't know, just a struggle this year for Alabama compared to what they've been in the past. Just they don't really have a whole lot of people that scare you outside of Fouts, and I think Fouts is one of those pitchers that she dominates the teams that don't have strong hitting on the other side. So it'll be interesting to see how this is. Missouri again is not one of the stronger teams in the SEC. So I think you would, if you're an Alabama fan, you look at this one very much the way Florida has to look and going into South Carolina, with Alabama going to Missouri. This is a series that you really feel like that you've got to win 3. And if you're going to put yourself in a position to host a regional this year. Then we go to Kentucky and Georgia. Kentucky's been up and down so many times this year. Just when you get to the point where you trust them a little bit, they kind of throw out what they did against A&M this past weekend. And then Georgia's a team that has started a little bit slow, but they've been really, really good, in conference play here. They're as normal, they're hitting the ball really, really well. Second, I believe third in the country in home runs. If I look, 55 home runs on the year, a lot of power, hitting 319. But I think the difference with them is they're starting to pitch a little bit better. Madison Perfect is a good, really, really good pitcher for them. They've got a good 1-2 punch. And so if Georgia can consistently get some pitching, this is a team that is, I think, is positioned maybe more. Only Tennessee and Georgia are, I think, right now very much positioned as a team that I think that could absolutely get to the Women's College World Series, without a doubt. Then we go to the ACC, and we'll finish this up briefly so we can get you guys out of here by 4. But Duke and Virginia Tech, a couple of ranked teams facing each other. Florida State won the series at Duke this past past weekend. Now Duke has to go on the road to face a ranked Virginia Tech team. Virginia Tech's I've watched them quite a few times. They're a little weird to me. They lead the country in home runs, believe it or not, at 61, but they have a fairly low batting average comparatively speaking to hitting 288 as a team. So they're a little bit, you know, they're a little bit reliant on the home run. So if they're not able to get that home run, then again, as we mentioned, Emma Lemley is the ace of that staff, but still they're not pitching at an extremely high level. They have a 2.54 ERA as a team, so that's not where you would expect a really, really good top 10 team to be on the mound. And then a couple of games here as we go to the Pac-12 and wrap up here. Washington, Arizona State. A little bit of an interesting series with Washington going on the road here. Arizona State is not. At one point, I believe they were on the tail end of the top 25, or really receiving votes, but not just an outstanding team. And this is another series that Washington really needs to win 3. I think they'll be in position to win 3. And then we go to the series that I'm the most excited about outside of Oklahoma and Texas, and Stanford UCLA. I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are probably like me and not the hugest fans of UCLA, and I think Stanford is another team that is very undervalued. I think most people have them in the top 5 or top 6, but they have pitched and they have played really, really well. 1.29 ERA, a couple of really solid aces on that team. Elena Vauders is one, and Candidate is another one. Hasn't pitched a whole lot lately, but that'll be interesting to see. Stanford won, I believe, 2 out of 3 last year against UCLA and Palo Alto. This one is in UCLA, so very interesting to see that. I have, just from just a little prediction perspective, I think Stanford wins 2 out of 3 in that one, but we'll see. It will be a really, really good series to watch and monitor this weekend. So let's go back here. Let's see. Wouldn't be surprised to see OU put up between 15 and 20 runs tonight. I think they're going to try. They're going to do everything they possibly can, without a doubt, to end this one quickly and show their dominance tonight, without a doubt. 18th game in a row. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was. I couldn't remember if it was 17 or 18 or what it was, but yeah, I remember you mentioning to me that was a program record. But yeah, no, that's impressive. And Indiana has as good of a shot as anyone in the Big Ten, and something that's really, really wide open. Talked about Florida. Definitely agree. They need a sweep. Absolutely have to have that, without a doubt. Tennessee sweeps A&M. Yep, completely agree. Completely agree there. Let's see. Thing like Stanford to win 2 out of 3 as well. Yep, absolutely, I agree. All right, so I appreciate everybody for being here. Was a great first session. Like I said, we'll continue to do this once a week. It might either be on Friday or Sunday, depending on schedules and things like that. So make sure you hit that. You hit the like button, hit that notification bell, so you know that when we're going to go live, and we'll continue this. It's really, just in closing, just for me, really exciting for a guy that's been a part of softball for so long. My dad officiated for years as I was growing up. I played, I coached, I officiated. My daughter is now the first year she's playing softball herself. So it's really, to me, it's exciting to see how big the game has gotten. I don't think there's any Power 5 games this weekend starting tonight through Sunday that's not streaming on something, whether it's ESPN Plus or whether it's on the ESPN family of network or Pac-12 network, Big Ten Plus, whatever it is. I think there's not really a series or any games that aren't being televised. So there's so much more out there that you can see, and there's so much in the way that these ladies perform day in and day out, week in and week out is just really exciting to watch, and to me, one of the most exciting sports to watch, whether it's Oklahoma or just anyone nationally. So really excited, the notoriety and then just the access that we have as fans to be able to watch the sport. So again, like, we'll continue to do this as much as we can. Grab a friend or 10 next week, and I know we'll try to put these at different times, so it's a little bit more advantageous for people to join, as opposed to 3 o'clock. But I wanted to do this ahead of time for those that were traveling, or just getting prepared for the Oklahoma Texas game tonight. And so I think Oklahoma wins in the run rule. I think I'm going to go somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 to 1. I think Oklahoma dominates early, shows exactly what kind of team that they are, and I think they're going to get challenged in one game. I think there's going to be two games that Oklahoma wins fairly easily, whether it's tonight or another night. I think there's going to be one game where Oklahoma just dominates and run rules. I think there's going to be another game where Oklahoma wins comfortably, maybe not a run rule, and then there's going to be another game that's going to be close. Not saying that Oklahoma's going to lose it, but I think there's going to be one that's close. I think Oklahoma will go ahead and sweep, but enjoy the games. Like I said, follow us on Twitter. We're going to talk about all kinds. If you guys aren't making sure that you're attending our space, like I said, we have a Twitter space every Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. Central. So come join us, and we'll talk about everything that happened this weekend. But other than that, Boomer Sooner, God bless, and enjoy the softball this weekend.